The world of hums, riffs, notes, and chords have this unique force. They stir the soul and awaken powerful emotions within us. Whether it be a joyful celebration or a somber lament, the essence of our songs can transcend time and place, sending us to different realms entirely. And Gabby seems to reside in this timeless space of singing, swinging, and jazz. As Mail and Guardian wrote in their 2026 article, Gabby's sound refuses to sit on the surface of time or at the bottom of language. She sings, she swings, which is to say, she re-socializes a survival melody to propel a feeling, a freedom sentiment into the universe. Tonight, we're exploring the musical space of Gabi Motuba, the sacred sounds of her internal world, and the complex imagination that has shaped her career up until this point. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Owami K.
And I am Unachi Sandi, also known as Unsta the Star, Makhulu no Tamkhulu, and I am the other half of this beautiful pair. But before we begin, as always, let's take a quick look at this short insert.
So I just watched Gabi Motuba and fantastic show. I've been coming to the Grand Festival since the early 90s, and this is one of the most fantastic shows I've watched. Very spiritual. She is such a beautiful, beautiful artist. The choir was just like a topping on top of it. It's beautiful, beautiful. But a lovely show. Thank you.
That is a very beautiful insight, letting us into how the career of Gabi Motuba is marked by great soul and rhythm. Gabi Motuba, popularly known as Gabi Motuba, is a South African award-winning jazz vocalist, composer, and arranger. Born in Mamelodi, she studied jazz music at the Tshwane University of Technology and received her diploma in 2013.
After studying jazz at the Tshwane University of Technology, she established herself as one of the country's most distinctive voices through acclaimed projects such as Project Almo, Sanctum Sanctorium, and her debut solo album, Tafiti, Goddess of Creation. Gabi Motuba has also provided numerous workshops and developed music curriculums for young children from previously disadvantaged backgrounds in collaboration with the Soweto Theatre.
Now, Gabi has a rich and vast career, planting herself and sharing her light in the musical space, which led to the formation of a band and the beginning of her venture of sheet music editor to assist local and international artists needing assistance in composing, amongst many other things. It is clear that she has transformed local jazz and indigenous music and has made her mark in this world as one of the leading and remarkable South African jazz artists.
That's very true, and we're excited to be transformed by having a conversation with Gabi today on Let's Talk. Hi, Gabi, and welcome to Let's Talk.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming, right? So, your father's influence on your journey in jazz is very well known, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say that influence was like, shaping you through your adulthood and your childhood and then being the person that you are now?
I think that my dad had a very interesting taste in music and a very varied taste in music as well. So he was part of the reason why I have such a big palette, to say the least. Why I'm interested in music of so much genre, so much difference in taste, difference in language, difference in form. So I think he had a lot to do with that. He contributed a lot to do that. I don't know, he didn't have a preference, like, sonic preference. He just really loved beautiful music, and That's what I create. Yeah.
You say that your creation of beautiful music was because you grew up around someone who sort of listens to everything and then you started getting passionate about music from there? Or was it something where you're like, oh, my parents love this, so I want to make them happy through doing what they like?
Yeah, I have to be careful about the second one. But I was a bit of a rebel, so I don't think it was the second one. No, it was really just because they were also like adults, right? So you would think that, as an older person, he wouldn't be into R&B, he wouldn't be into pop, but he was, so it was very freeing. He didn't have that kind of, this is what you're supposed to listen to, this is not what you're not supposed to like. So he just influenced me in the sense that I didn't kind of refine myself too much in that way. I didn't police my ear in that way. I didn't police my sound. Whatever it is that I liked, I gravitated toward and I produced, Unlike my colleagues, sometimes I see that, there's this like internal conversation that's always had like, will people accept me when I produce this? Or will people be into this kind of sound? It's a bit new, it's a bit old, or it's a bit whatever. I don't have those kind of internal conversations. Whatever I like, I make. So, yeah.
Whatever you like.
Growing up listening to this great music that you're telling us about, R&B, there was pop, then there was jazz. Growing up listening to music is one thing, but actually pursuing a career in music is a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the very first moment or one of the most memorable moments when you were like, I love this and I'd love to pursue a career in it?
Yeah. I don't know if it's like one moment, but there were a series of moments that showed me that, music gave me courage, to kind of go outside of myself, go outside of my comfort zone. I remember being like, kind of 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, I think in the 3rd grade. I'm giving away my age a little bit. But I was like listening to this song, Take the Shackles Off. I think that song just dropped. And I think I was really in my formative years, like in primary school. And I just got the urge to learn the song, but not just that, but like perform it as a young student. So I got my friends together and we did a whole thing like in the pavilion. So those kind of moments, it's like something really pushed me to be very fearless whenever I was dealing with music. I wasn't the same in other areas. I was pretty shy, pretty introverted. But when it came to music, I was like, just the sound and music just pushed me like in a very bold way. So yeah. Then I was like, no, I think this is it. Yeah.
Then you started doing jazz, which is a space that is mainly known to be male-dominated. It's a space that is well known to be male-dominated. How would you say was the experience of finding your own voice in such a male-dominated space?
Jazz was difficult. Jazz was really, really difficult. Even in varsity, I did struggle because unlike, I don't know, it's a discipline, right? So it's not just like you have a talent, but there's like technique that informs the genre. You have to improvise, you have to play with other musicians in a very specific way. I'd never done that before, as like a sideman, you have to be able to support another musician. It's not just like presenting, your own thing. So in that aspect, it was difficult, but of course, like, I found a lot of my male counterparts, because they'd been going to jam sessions, they were better versed in that arena, of improvising and stuff. I was a girl. My dad was like super strict. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere, so I only learned. I was only exposed to that once I got to varsity. So I had to learn very quickly. But I think what made me not to think about it being too much of a male space, it's probably because I really liked music. I liked it more than I feared being around a bunch of dudes. you know. I was, I think I was more loyal to it than I was fearful of the space. You know, that gave me a lot of courage as well. And also, I played a lot with my friends. I started writing music very early on, so it allowed me to kind of move in groups, you know, move with the people who I was creating music with. So I never felt alone in that way. But it's still a very male dominated industry, and not just as instrumentalists, but even in the back, especially, you know, like from tech to producers to, you know, the technical side of the industry is very male dominated. But I'm seeing like young girls do their thing nowadays, you know, and they're coming with fire, you know, and they're occupying all fronts of the music industry, which is really, really great to see.
Thank you so much, Gabi. I think you having shared your story is so beautiful, and how you've come to jazz. I think a lot of the time people think that because you're a musician, you sort of just wake up and you know how to do something. Right? But you showing that it takes years of training, I think is also encouraging for other aspiring artists out there that listen, even if you're not perfect yet, yes, you're able to go there someday, right? So the Sabbath is a project that you started working on during COVID after the loss rather of your father, right? And we know that grief often doesn't look the same as time passes. How has the album changed as you continue to grow through your grief and experiences?
That's a beautiful question. When I wrote the Sabbath, I think when I listen to it now in retrospect, I kind of see the depth in the grief that I was really working through. So that is interesting. You know, it's really beautiful to come out on the other side and look like, yo, hi, been kuisha, like proper. But I was, it's like life, you know. You look back and sometimes you're proud of moments, sometimes you're a bit embarrassed, you know, sometimes you're afraid for yourself, like, whoa, like, I'm so glad. But sometimes you're like, you're happy, you know, that you went through that and you came out on the other side. But what that moment gifted me, what grief gifted me, was deep focus, you know. I think that's one of the byproducts of an emotion such as grief, of an experience such as grief. You know, you're really able to go inward in a way that you've never done before. You're able to experience solitude in a way that in a new way. It's not just an external solitude, you know, so it's not a lonely from people. It's like a loneliness of self somehow. You kind of split from self and you're trying to rediscover yourself and your identity and etc. So it just compelled me to go deeper than I have. And, you know, in that process, I was able to pull out a project such as the Sabbath, which is really cool. Because looking at it, I'm really proud. I wrote that. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, I wrote that. Like, I'm like, you know, it even kind of, it's such a, it's like a gift, you know. It was really, I see that project as a real big gift to my career. Yeah.
I was listening to The Offering quite a number of days ago, and I thought to myself, if you wrote this from a space of grief, which is one of the most scary things one could go through, and I'm thinking, Ukuba, how much did you allow yourself, how vulnerable did you allow yourself to go when it came to that project, and how was that experience for you? Because I'm imagining grief is I can imagine the amount of work that went into that. How was that for you?
It was I mean, to answer the question of vulnerability, I think, man, grief is very interesting because it doesn't allow you to have shame. somehow. It's like you're unashamedly grieving and you're unashamedly vulnerable, So I did know that I was sharing very deep parts of me, but I was unashamedly doing that. I just thought that, if I was going to rebuild from this place, and this is kind of the door I had to walk through, so yeah, it was tough. But like I said, in retrospect, because not in the moment is very hard. And a lot of work, a lot of crying, a lot of reflecting, a lot of writing. But in retrospect, I'm quite proud that I decided to explore or express my grief with that medium, and it really made me appreciate culture and art in a very different way. When people say that art is a way of releasing, and especially trauma, it can be an avenue of exploring deep release of traumatic experience. I really believe that, and it's quite a wonderful thing to look at something that you thought would break you into something that is kind of like this huge stepping stone. You just thought you were down, you thought you'd never come up, and here's this thing that just comes out of that and propels you to places where you never thought you'd go. So it was a gift, like I said, a very interesting experience, very deep and spiritual experience for me as well. Yeah.
I have to say, it definitely is a gift. And I think also being vulnerable and allowing yourself to feel these emotions is a gift to yourself. Because if you don't express them, then they just sit with you and you become a shell of yourself. At any point during the creation of the sample, were you ever like, actually, let's leave the whole thing? There's too many emotions. I'm not even sure if people are going to be able to receive this the way that I'm creating it, or if people are going to be able to accept my heart in this form because they used to it in a specific form. Were there ever those moments? And how did you push through and actually be like, okay, I'm doing this? Because now in retrospect, you're like, oh, that was a great project. But I can imagine there were times where you're like, let's cancel it.
As fantasy
This is too
as I
much.
am.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, the anxiety was there, hey, and it was there just before I released it. But I was also very strategic. I like process a lot. I don't like to just boom do stuff and like there it is for people to kind of see. So, one of the first iterations of the Sabbath that I had only just written like the four of the core movements of the project, and I was invited by National Arts Festival. I think it was 2023, 2022. I kind of was developing it and writing it. And I thought that this is kind of an opportune moment to kind of see, to be in conversation with people around this new body of work, because it was very different, and it was, I think, for where I was in my career, I felt that it was very loaded in, this kind of the religious text that I was borrowing, and it was, I think very provocative in that way. So I decided to, this elephant, I'm going to eat it up in chunks. I'm going to kind of see what people say, like in small chunks, and just like, hello. And also I had kind of said, I don't like to create too much in vacuum. I like to create, put it out, and it's just feedback, not in a, not in a policing kind of way, but in a way that I also want to make sure that I honor the idea of audience. I like to think, okay, how is this going to be best digested by the people around me? So this is where over the over the course of maybe 3 years, I was doing different iterations of it. So it was first the core quartet, the string quartet. Then it grew, it added a bit more instruments, a bit more of the brass, a bit more of the rhythm section. I heard, okay, I can add a bit more drum. I think it's missing a bit more percussion. I think people need a bit more release in this place. So let me bring in a bit more rhythm. So when I was releasing it, people had heard it previously, and they had given me some thoughts around the compositions. And then it put me a little bit at ease, but even if it was like, it was hard. And there were some people who were like, hey, Gabi, man, the religious thing, just put in your own lyrics because we don't really hear this. There were sometimes like a little bit of some resistance to the project, but that's when I knew I was onto something. I was like, oh, okay, people are really listening, so maybe I should just chart ahead and try to see what comes out on the other side. But yeah, there was a bit of anxiety, but yeah, I was able to kind of put that to the side and do the work. Yeah.
And you have now grown into this force to be reckoned with, and your music has taken you even to international stages. You've been to Brooklyn, and as someone that was born in Mamelodi, you coming from South, and you know, and you are a female figure to begin with, and you are umdu webaleli mnyama. When you get to the international stages, what did you notice about the treatment when it comes to jazz black vocalists or musicians?
I want to be honest, yeah. Sure, there's a lot of talent here at home. That's what I noticed. I noticed that, we sometimes take our perspectives, our point of views, our POVs, we take them for granted. There's just something about being in South Africa, being black, having the experience of, however, like a marginalized society, whether you're female, you're LGBTQ, there's something about growing up in those marginalized communities that gives you a little bit of an edge. It's like, I think it's a form of expanded capacity somehow, when you're when you're kind of at the bottom of the barrel, you just have had more capacity. You've had more to deal with. You've had more discrimination to withstand. You've had a bit more experience to kind of, to kind of deal with in the industry as a person, in your existence. So I thought, I saw for the first time that I had a lot of capacity that my international peers just did not have access to, because growing up in a more kind of curated, or more kind of secured, more kind of protected environment, it doesn't, it does, unfortunately and fortunately as well, it doesn't give you a vast kind of a vast kind of influence into what is possible, what is happening in the world. It gives you a very curated lens to which you kind of see the world. So I don't have that. And because of that, really becomes a big advantage because my imagination spans further. My understanding is more nuanced. My experience is, it's packed on, to other people's experiences. So I think whenever I'm talking to my students, this is what I say, like, don't leave yourself at the door. You just don't know what you have until you walk into those rooms and you realize, oh my goodness, I carry mountains and mountains of knowledge, and a particular type of education that I can only receive just because I am who I am. So this is I wish that we knew what we had, as we are where we are, and I wish that we didn't have to go abroad or to experience other cultures in order to validate who we are, in order to really see who we were. But like I say, just because you are who you are, you carry so much of that rich perspective, of that rich experience, that allows you to contend with the best of the best in the world, And then it's been a beautiful journey. I've had the privilege of collaborating with many artists overseas and of different disciplines. Been in conversation as well with many beautiful minds. And I really, really wish that for many, many, many talented Black artists, that experience, just that we can come home and kind of really establish something real and really, know who we are and kind of, yeah.
Not leaving yourself at the door, right? Carrying your experiences and your perspectives into the rooms that you're going through or that you're going into. Your project that you're debuting at the National Arts Festival is titled Sounds of a Black Girl. Mm-hmm. Take us through the naming process of that. What was that like? Why Sounds of a Black Girl? And what did it require from you? As an individual to be able to produce it and finally say, you know what, these are the sounds of a Black girl.
Yeah, I mean, I've been brewing on this title for quite a while. My partner was like, why don't you say Sounds of a Black Woman? I'm like, nah, I'm still a girl, okay? I'm just a girl, brother, relax. It's a project that's grown from my perspective into, all my kind of my bridge from music into sound. Very, very much right now I'm interested in, listening and the ear and, what is a musician's contribution? What do we mean when we say that, someone's sound is very distinctive, or, your sound is very recognizable, or there's something there about your sound I just don't understand. So I'm trying to think through that aspect of being an artist. How do you move away from just recreating someone else's body of work to you coming into your sonic existence, your sonic perspective? And that's also what I teach, that's my interest. And I thought this should live also as a body of work, as an album, and that would be interesting in how, like, to center the voice as this primary place of expression. And because of my experience as a singer, I know how much archive is in the voice and is in sound, how we speak, like, we were having this conversation before, and how there's melody in language, and how sound carries so much archive, so much historical archive, and in how we kind of relate to one another, and how we hear different inflections in the aesthetic of our expression, comes from this kind of sonic experience that we've had over the years and in our upbringing. So I wanted for people to kind of hear that perspective, and hear that it's not just beautiful singing that we hear, but it's like, it's intentional singing that we hear, and it's honest singing, it's honest sounding that we respond to, in that there's a specific way that you heard Umakulu speaking to you when she was like really upset, right? And there's an aesthetic to like your temperament of like an angry sounding somebody or a nar sounding somebody, and I'm trying to put that into the sonic language, into the sonic sandwich, and through music and through these standards, I'm trying to express that and say that, the way that I sing is the way that my grandmother spoke to me when she was upset or when she was happy. And, the way that I sing is the way my brother speaks to me when he's trying to console me. It's the way that I speak to other people when I'm trying to register all those different emotions. This is my sonic library. And it is not a different part of me. You can't take it out of my expression. And it does not live in genre. It lives in me. It is my style. So whether I'm singing rock, whether I'm singing classical, I'm singing jazz, I'm always me first. This is my ear. My ear is my style. That's why I say don't leave yourself at the door. You are the sound. You are the embodiment of the sound. So yeah, this is the project I'm very passionate about. I don't know if you heard.
We love that. We love the fact that it's a representation of the way you hear the world almost and how it sounds like to you. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. We're talking to Gabi Motuba about her life, her music, and her story. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk. We are still in conversation with the incredible Gabi, speaking all things great music, life, and everything in between. We hope and pray that while some of us were taking a break, you went to the door and found yourself, as we said earlier on. Now, Gabi, in one of the conversations you had, stock, just so you know, in one of the conversations that you had, you described yourself as a maker of new things. What did you mean by that? And how does it look for Ayazi?
I don't know if I still have the same position as I did when I when I did that interview. But what I think what I meant by that is a maker of new things. I think that what I mean is that my perspective is my perspective because of my experience. So I make anew in the sense that I'm here to contribute only what I can contribute, right? And that is my responsibility to acknowledge and to honor this contribution that, that I've been given, this experience that I've been given, and these broad shoulders, that I stand on, that only I have experienced through my point of view. So I'm a maker of anew in that I bring my own POV, I bring this fresh experience because I have been present through my life, throughout my life. And like I say, I honor the individuals that have been part of this journey, whether it be my grandmother, my parents, my friends, my colleagues, whomever has gifted me with interaction, with relation, is part and parcel making this new thing, that I am here to share with the world.
Yeah, I love that you say that you honor the people around you, the people that you're in relation with, right? So a lot of your music is in conversation with theology, philosophy, black studies, and all these sort of world politics and these important topics in society, right? What would you say is your contribution in this conversation, or in making the conversation one that everyone?
Oh, that's a big question. What my contribution is in that, I think maybe I should start off by saying, Black studies has really helped in contextualizing a lot of my music, my sound, my education, my sonic education, because it doesn't just put into question my discipline, but it puts into question my existence. It foregrounds me first as Gabi, who's this person having an experience in the world in a very specific way. So Black Studies has helped me to celebrate who I am, to interrogate who I am, and in so doing, I'm able to, it's like, I'm able to add another chapter to the book, of, just like there's Genesis and there's John and Matthew, man, there's Gabi, you know what I mean? The chapter of the world, there was Gabi, and these are the Chronicles. So yeah, it's like that. I see it in that regard, and hopefully people can, just like in different chapters and different characters in different chapters in different books, each character brings in a different experience that you can learn from. You don't have to walk through the same kind of hurdles that that person lived. You can kind of take a little page out of their book to refine your own experience, and that's my contribution. Like, I want people to refine their experience through what it is that I'm trying to kind of share, the traps that you may see in the future, if you decide to walk this journey, yeah.
I think that's a very beautiful way of thinking of yourself as a vessel, because I believe ukuba we are the bringers of light, and basically singabantu that light in Velali. So if there's someone that's coming after you, they have to know that Gabi went through this, so I shouldn't have to go through the same thing.
Correct, yeah.
That in your own book as a musician, you have been named one of the Standard Bank Young Artists for HS. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What does it mean for you? What does it signify? And through this platform and many other doors that are going to be opened, what are the messages that you'd love to bring our attention to as society?
First of all, thank you. Thank you so much for acknowledging that. It's quite a big deal for me. It's a big deal for jazz musicians, especially this category. And it brings me great honor to be a part of that lineage, of personnel who've kind of walked this path, this journey before me. What it means to me to be an SBYA, obviously the work doesn't stop. I've always been, like I say, I'm an artist of process. I'm not really, an artist of output. I like process a lot. I like to dive into the process, and the longer it takes, the better it is for me. But these kinds of accolades really are just like milestone markers, kind of. It helps me to also slow down. It helps me to acknowledge and look back and, see the work that I have done so far, and to celebrate and to just be grateful for the work that has been put in and that I've been able to do and that has been able to be supported thus far. So that's the big milestone. So it's, these accolades, like I said, it's for an artist like me to receive a little pat on the back for all the long hours that I'm still gonna put in. And yeah, it's a really cool award. It comes with a lot of work as well, which is really lovely. I like these kinds of awards that that bring in the sustainability element to it, not just a once-off thing, but they come with an opportunity to produce another project or any kind of to develop any kind of living project that you'd like to do. So this is more to do with the process. And what I would like, I guess, to just summarize your question, I guess you're trying to ask me, what am I about basically in this award? I think it illuminates an artist of a different a kind of a different vibe. I'm like an artist of a different vibe. I don't know how to better say that. And it gives younger artists a different a different model to follow. It gives a different example, which is that you can do it the slow way. You can center process. You don't have to rush. And you're powerful in and of yourself. Your perspective is valuable. You don't have to compromise. And you can have fun with it and still get your bag, Yeah.
Have fun with it and still get your bag.
For sure.
Thank you so much for coming on Let's Talk, Gabi. I definitely enjoyed this conversation with you. I definitely enjoyed getting to know more about you.
For sure.
Girl, why are you saying I? We enjoyed it so much.
We definitely did enjoy it. And we hope that you guys at home also enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk. Remember that art is a process. And Gabi reminds us that the world we enter into does not need to remain the same way that we found it. It's up to us to break the barriers, and it yearns for us to make a change to the systems that have perpetually limited us for generations.
In our lingo, we would say ungazinxishi, but Gabi, uyibeka ngoluhlobo oluthi, don't leave yourself at the door. Thank you so much, Gabi, for sharing your light with us and for letting us into your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you to the Let's Talk family.
And thank you to everyone watching. Until next time, keep talking because silence changes nothing.
This has been Let's Talk. Good night.